Well, Dr. Jack Kevorkian says it is time for the government to stop this kind of fear. He's no stranger to life and death situations, as you know. The doctor spent 8 years in prison for his role in an assisted suicide by some accounts. He played a role in up to 130 of them. Dr. Kevorkian joins me now for this exclusive chat. Doctor, good to have you.
Thank you.
What do you think of what they're considering in Massachusetts?
Well, I just heard about it about an hour ago, and it doesn't surprise me, but it does sadden me. The argument hasn't backed away to the fundamental point that it's a maxim this country was founded on, that you have a natural right, not a legislated right, a natural right to refuse to participate in anything that assaults your body or your conscience. Einstein said it nicely: conscience supersedes the law of the state.
But what if the conscience, doctor, of authorities is that they don't want a lot of people dying? And so recognizing that conscientious obligation of government, they say, they're going to quarantine sick people in their homes rather than risk a lot more people getting sick.
Well, the way to do it would be to say, put something in your window that in this home we want to be quarantined. Then it's they're using their own right to accept what the government offers. But if you don't want it, then you don't put the thing in the window. And everybody who does get vaccinated, they're not going to get the disease. Those who risked it are going to die or get ill. But I don't think that may happen, because the death rate in this this virus, is not like it was in the old days, and it's nothing like the Black Plague. In other words, we got a prevalent infection, but not much death yet. So it isn't very virulent. It isn't very virulent, and the person is born with a choice. If he wants to risk disease and death, it's his choice. But he isn't going to hurt anybody else who's vaccinated.
You spent 8 years, more than 8 years, in prison for helping terminally ill people die. The prosecution at the time said you really murdered them. It's been a long time. Are you angry?
No. I have no regrets. Prison was it was an experience for me.
How so?
Most of the inmates and most of the guards supported me.
Supported your right to help people who, if they wanted to die, die.
I don't tell people they want to die. I do what a physician should do. That's what he's for. You do what is, Hippocrates said it very plainly. You do what is best for the patient, period. And the patient knows what's best for him in most cases.
They called you a murderer. What did you think of that?
Well, if I did it with malice aforethought and without the permission, then I would be a murderer. But they forgot the definition of murder when they criticized me, because it's so negative an epithet that they win by fear. They throw these things out for fear. The same thing they're doing with this swine flu.
Let me ask you, Doctor, about whether you are out of the assisted suicide business. You had said when you were released from jail and you was beginning after parole, I'm out of that business. But are you? A lot of folks say that if someone came in and they needed your help, they wanted to die, that Jack Kevorkian would help them. Would you?
I would help them if they deserve it. We don't do it on the whim, you know. We had, in some cases, we had 6 or 8 different consultations over a period of time. And we made sure the patient was rational. If we could get a psychiatrist to check the patient over, but many of them refused. Many physicians refused to cooperate, which forced me to improvise.
Many are saying that one key aspect of this healthcare reform they're looking at, Dr. Kevorkian, is these so-called panels that would meet with the elderly and discuss life and end-of-life options. Sarah Palin has called them death panels. What do you call them?
Well, the death panel makes it sound so negative. See, there, again, it's all a fear tactic. There will be a panel, but a panel of physicians, not religious people, not ethicists, physicians. Because a physician is the only one qualified to evaluate the medical condition of the patient and the only one qualified to decide if the patient's wish is worthy of action.
So if an older person is going to this physician panel, and the physician panel has to decide the type of care that's out there and how many people want that type of care, and he's with an older person, that older person is going to go to the back of the line anyway, aren't they?
I didn't get the whole thing. This thing slipped out of my ear.
All right. Many argue that these physicians meeting with older people will all but tell them, look, you're old. You're going to have to stand in the back of the line for health care because you're old. And that is a death panel. What do you say?
They have no right to say that. It depends. The patient is willing to wait. He has to wait. What can he do? But you don't say you're old, so you ought in it for that reason. He's got to have a legitimate medical reason, not just being old.
So calm people of their fears, doctor, who say, well, this scares me. I'm going before this panel of doctors, as Dr. Kevorkian would say, or whatever, and they are going to hear my thoughts on my end-of-life wishes. And they're going to decide whether they're granted, essentially. And that scares folks. What do you tell them?
Well, first of all, the panel of doctors is not doctors who oppose anything. They're open to rationality. If a patient consults with a doctor who is opposed to what he wants, then he's not the wrong place. The doctor's got to have a completely open mind, because the patient is what counts, not the doctor's feelings. That's why Catholic doctors don't consult with some people.
Now you mentioned Catholic doctors, doctor, but you think religion and God and all this plays too much of a role in these decisions. Are you an atheist? What are you exactly?
Call me anything you want. Call Clarence Darrow an atheist. Call Johannes Brahms an atheist. Call me anything you want. All I know is I do not believe in mythology. I do not accept mythology as a basis for my actions or basis for law. And we are based on mythology.
So when Jack Kevorkian dies, you're not going anywhere. It's done. You're dead, right?
Yeah, you're going into the ground, and you're going to stink for a while, then you're going to go into the ground.
So this obsession we have about death and fear we have about death, what do you think of that?
It's the control. You know, the British writer Ouida said it nicely. Christianity has made of death a terror which was unknown to the gay calmness of the pagan. So you see, it's a terrible thing. You know, the big enemy is death. Everybody talks that way when they talk religion. It affects everybody. They're going to all experience it. You mean God was cruel enough to make sure he gave you something in the end of life that's going to scare the devil out of you?
So let me ask you, in this healthcare discussion, as you know, doctor, part of it is about lengthening our lives and making those lives healthier, period. And do you think healthcare reform itself is a good idea if among its goals is insuring more people and then making sure they live longer?
Oh, sure. Why live longer only? You don't add the rest of it without suffering. You forget that, don't you?
Well, aren't there drugs for suffering and pain? And aren't there drugs for depression? And when you were putting them to sleep, or whatever you want to call it, you were ignoring.
Listen, everyone I helped welcomed death. They were not a fear of it, not one of them. And you know, more than half of my patients were Catholic.